New reaction today to President Trump's efforts to revive the so-called anti-weaponization fund if his pick for Attorney General Todd Blanche is not confirmed. The Senate Judiciary Committee is set to meet Tuesday to consider Blanche's nomination, but Republican holdouts John Cornyn and Thom Tillis keep standing in the way, demanding Blanche back up his claim that the $1.8 billion fund is dead, and they want that in writing. Well, Trump says he will keep Blanche as acting AG and push to get Congress to pass legislation to create the fund. Lawmakers are wary about giving Trump a blank check.
This is a payout pot for punks. This is a slush fund to reward common criminals who beat up and assault police officers, over 140 of whom had documented injuries.
All right, well, let me ask you.
In terms of a settlement with that.
Let me ask you, I mean, do you think anyone who attacked police officers, stormed the Capitol on January 6th should get taxpayer money as a part of that fund?
No, I'd take them off the table.
Joining me now, former Republican Congressman from Virginia, Denver Riggleman. He's a former senior advisor to the January 6th Select Committee. Denver, you heard lawmakers there concerned any version of this fund will offer payouts to January 6th rioters. Republican senators saying this morning they believe people who they claim were targeted by the Biden administration should get payouts, but there's already a judgment fund that could do that. So if that's the case, why don't you think Donald Trump will let this go?
He's got to pay for criminals. It's funny. I hear this alarming alliteration coming out of people, right? But it's really financing for felons. I don't think, it's hard for me because I was on the January 6th committee. I got to see the sentencing guidelines. I got to see the actual charging documents. And the violence that was part of this is so despicable. It's just hard for me to get my arms around it as a law-abiding person. Right, about what Donald Trump is even saying here. And when you're talking about $1.8 billion, that is a significant amount of money for violent offenders, some that were, they were adjudicated for sedition. And if you're talking about Stuart Rhodes, you're talking about Enrique Tarrio. And the fact that I saw this is such a corrupt and awful thing. It's hard for normal, sane people to get their arms around it. What you're looking at is somebody who is a felon and Donald Trump wanting to reward his friends that are also felons. That's really what this comes down to. It's a corrupt payout based on conspiracy theories and radicalization.
And something else we have to keep in mind, right? This isn't only about the anti-weaponization fund. The Republican holdouts on Blanche's confirmation also want to put limited restrictions on Trump's IRS immunity deal with the DOJ. But even if they get what they want, Trump, his family and his businesses will be protected from audits on prior tax years. The question is, why aren't they pushing to end this immunity altogether? Why just only push for those limited restrictions, you think?
Well, there's a reason I'm not in the GOP anymore is because I think you have cowards. They're afraid to go all in on what's right and what's wrong. There's a lack of a moral compass that's so egregious in the United States Congress today, and those who are much more willing to give in to somebody who's obviously either mentally unwell or doing this in a cynical way or in a criminal way. It's just hard for me to, again, get my arms around how you can't, as a person who took an oath to the Constitution, push back on really the self-dealing that's going on in the Trump administration. When you put up that graphic, when it talked about how badly he's been treated and no money, his family is self-dealing in the tune of billions of dollars a year. They've taken over the military-industrial complex. You're looking at the Board of Peace. You're looking at their ability to manipulate the entire defense market to their own means. So that's why their wealth has exploded. So again, what we're looking at is just a continuation of the corruption we're seeing in real time.
And I sort of want to ask you about your feelings about that in general. If we zoom out, during the president's cabinet meeting this past week, he was adamant. He still believes January 6th riders deserve payouts. He recently gave a primetime speech, in fact, spinning some baseless claims of election interference, and has been really pushing for the federal government to take a larger role in elections. So again, as you reflect on your time examining what happened after the 2020 election and even maybe looking ahead towards the midterms, what are you thinking about this? I mean, what is at the top of your mind when you consider all of these things?
How wide open corruption is right now. I mean, it's really something that we've never seen in United States history and literally in jurisprudence. We've never seen anything like this. And when you're looking at, when you look at the things that he's talking about right now, and you're looking at the IRS, you're looking at the J6 fund, you're looking at the people around him, the yes men and women, it's almost like the Duma, right? When they're talking about this, you really just have an organization that is so openly corrupt. I think it's hard to believe that our institutions have completely failed. So at the top of my mind is what do we do as Americans, right? How do we get in front of this type of corruption? How do we get in front of these type of statements? How do we get in front of individuals who are willing to do anything that the president tells them to? And I think that is the biggest problem we have in the United States right now, is we have so many people whose moral compasses have completely shattered.
When you say, what do we do as Americans, do you think the American public, voters, feel hopeless right now?
It's hard. When you think about 77 million people, I've been in the room with Donald Trump. I've seen the lack of nuance. I've seen the fact that this is a man who really, in some ways, has no idea what he's doing. And you're seeing that with the general direction of our country, how bad it is right now out there. And I think we're underestimating the downward effects generationally of what's happening. And what I hate to tell people, I don't want to be pessimistic, is that Trump's family's already won financially. I mean, they have billions of dollars in downward flows. It's going to be very hard to claw back. So now it's up to what does it look like going forward for Americans, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. What does it look like going forward? And I do think your original question, I think there's a lot of people that feel hopeless. And sometimes they say it's going to get worse before it's going to get worse. It's sort of a bit of a joke. But maybe when you're seeing the polling right now, I think finally you're seeing a crack in the MAGA base, and maybe Americans can hold on to some hope that sanity might be re-injected into our, I would say, democratic process.
And we have to see how everything is going to play out in November. Former Congressman Denver Riggleman, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Good to see you.
Thank you.